Hi, I'm Harold Bell, and welcome back to the Legends of Inside Sports and the Way We Were. We're talking to Dr. Harry Edwards, the foremost authority on the black athlete in America. And joining in on the conversation is the great Willie Wood, NFL Hall of Famer for the Green Bay Packers. And Willie talks about trying to survive as a black coach in the NFL. And he and Cornelius talks about the trials and tribulations of being the first black quarterback at a Division I school. And we're talking about the University of Southern Cal and Ohio State, respectively. Let's join them as Willie chips in here.
Off the air, as we went off the air, Dr. Edwards. What was that, Will?
Well, my participation in football has been more at a professional level. But I reflect back on what the doctor was saying. I went to the University of Southern California way back in 1956, and we were having the same kind of concerns that we're expressing here today. And as I reflect back on it and I think about the things that's happening today, if that same kind of activity is still happening, then nothing has actually been done. I maintained that nobody really cares, and that's the reason why these things are taking place. I'm often asked, why aren't I still in football? Why aren't I coaching someplace? I want to know that myself. Um, I did everything I could. I tied up all of my resources, to try to fight the ouster of myself being out of football, and the battle was too big for me, to a point that it became a question of survival, and I had to look other places to make a living. I recognized the fact that I was perhaps maybe smart, maybe sharp enough to do something else to make a living, and made another career for myself. And it's unfortunate.
Cornelius, what about your experiences at Ohio State and what Willie is relating to?
I just like to piggyback on what Willie was saying was basically at Ohio State. I would say it's about basically the same also. You go through a lot of racial pressures. I was Ohio State's first black quarterback they had, and you had to go through a big difference. You have to more so be a little bit better than the other guy, and intellectually you have to prove that you are sharp. At Ohio State, we averaged about 90,000 a game, and the people just want to win. So basically, it was a change at Ohio State that they didn't care if there was a black leader as long as they did win. And I think things are going back to how they used to be because there haven't been a black quarterback there since the mid 70s or Ohio State even recruiting black quarterbacks. So I think this is a national problem because you don't see as many black quarterbacks. In the 70s, you did see a few black quarterbacks on the college level, and now you don't see many at all. So I think that problem is still existing.
Dr. Edwards, one more quote out of your book. You said in that book that the black athlete, he has long last begun to speak out on the social and political issues affecting the lives and destinies of all Afro-American athletes and non-athletes alike. Only time will disclose whether or not these accomplishments of the revolt will have any impact toward positively altering the oppressed and degrading conditions of black people inside and outside the sports world. The black athlete is not saying anything today. So how you feel about that?
What I meant when I wrote that piece, the fact that piece was written in 1959, it was published in 1971.
Right.
And so here we are now, we're better than 15 years beyond that point, and I think that a judgment can be made. When I stated that only time will tell if this would alter the character of these circumstances, I think the judgment can be made now that while there's been some enlightenment, there's been very little change. I think that Willie and Willie is quite correct in terms of their vision of the situation. Not only has there not been progress, there can be a substantial case made that we have begun to roll back some of the advancements that have been made. Also, I think that we have to understand that one of the reasons that athletes do not speak out has to do with the changing circumstances. That is to say, there's a great deal more subtlety in the situation today. In the late 1960s, there were many institutions, many conferences, entire conferences, Southwest Conference, Texas, TCU, and SMU, and so forth, who were not even recruiting blacks. There were other conferences who did
not recruit blacks in specific sports. The issues were quite clear there. There were no black coaches, official or otherwise, at most major traditional white universities. The issues were quite clear there, and athletes could speak out on that. There were no blacks on the U.S. Olympic Committee. Now, there are blacks on the U.S. Olympic Committee. Virtually every institution has at least one black assistant coach. In football and basketball, it's virtually a prerequisite for recruiting. You've got to have somebody who can go into the black room, sit down, eat dinner with mom and dad, and talk about going to church and all the other kinds of things, and somehow hoodwink them into believing that these traditionally white institutions who have less than representative blacks in the student body and on the faculty and in the administration are going to treat their athletes, their young black kids, somehow differently than they treat the black population as a whole. You have to have a black assistant coach who can go in and do that. But in the late 1960s, there weren't even black assistant coaches. Now we have all of those things. So the rip-off is a lot more subtle. They're not using an axe the way they did at one time. They're now using a scalpel, but they're still cutting the jugular. They're still removing the heart and soul from these young black kids and dumping them back into the black community, feeling like so much excess baggage at the end of their career. So I think the assessment can now accurately be made that we have not only not made progress, we have not only not stimulated change by appealing to white intellect and white conscience, we have indeed lost some ground in the interim, and many black athletes feel that it's futile to speak out because this thing is quite over. All of the studies, all of the analysis and so forth relevant to the problem have been done. What has not been done is the initiation of the change, and I think that is something that black people as a whole, journalists, athletes, scholars, fans, people on the street, are going to have to do and begin to let these institutions know at the collegiate level that if my kid does not graduate, you don't get any more black athletes coming to that school. Right. Doc. Right, Doc, thank you very much for participating here. We all appreciate your input. And Doc, we're looking forward to talking to you again on Inside Sports. Thank you. Call me anytime. Okay, Doc, thank you.
Okay, that was Dr. Harry Edwards. And of course, that was very enlightening. You're talking about something very stimulating and provocative. That interview with Dr. Harry Edwards in 1986. And we're looking at today, and you know, there has been progress. Now, as you're saying, has there been change? Are they one of the same? You know, now we see that Art Shell became the first black NFL head coach in 1980, I think it was 1988, maybe 86. But anyway, 88, Art Shell did finally become the first black head coach. That show was done in 1986. There were no black coaches. And it took Al Davis to step up to the plate and hire Art Shell. Willie Wood was being blackballed by the National Football League because he was an assistant coach. Those of you who don't know that story, with the San Diego Chargers. And he spoke out about players using drugs. That way back there then. And that got him blackballed from the league. And then they really blackballed him from the NFL Hall of Fame where he belonged. And of course, we got together and we did a thing and we did a promo and we went to bat for Willie Wood and finally got him inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame in 1988. Cornelius Green, there we go again. You know, there were problems at Ohio State, but he said how he felt that with all the fans that they were drawing, they didn't care who's that quarterback, what color, as long as you won. But he did feel the pressure as a black quarterback. So yes, things are changing, things are progressing, but are they one of the same? Finally, many of you know that the University of Texas, a stronghold for a long time with racist tactics down there, they had very few black players. Never had a black coach in the history of the conference, but finally came into the 21st century when they hired Charlie Scott as a new head coach this past year. So things are moving forward. So hey, we'll keep a look at it and see what's happening, and we'll be back with some other insights right here on the Inside Sports, the legends of Inside Sports and the way we were. Stay tuned.